In this video, I'm planning on going over a few examples of unit conversions. So unit conversions are something you're going to use all the time. Like once you're out of this class, going through life, you're going to need to convert units. And it's part of the reason why we have such a hard time with unit conversions is because the US uses the imperial or US unit system. The rest of the world uses the metric unit system. So we need to learn both because the imperial system is used here, but then the rest of the world is using metric. So you're going to see things in metric, you're going to see things in imperial units, and you're going to need to know how to convert between units. And then with that said, you're also going to need to know how to convert between different metric units. And the two tables that you need to be familiar with, or at least know how to find the unit conversions that you need. So either in the book, which I have this Timberlake chemistry book, and it has some tables in it with common conversion factors. These are also online. If you just Google, like say you want to convert meter to inch, you can just Google convert meter to inch. And the first thing that comes up on Google is the conversion factor that you need to do that conversion. So you can find the conversion factors online. You can do the conversions online most of the time. I think it's important to know how to do them by hand, even though Google will calculate almost all of these for you. It's important to know how to do it by hand, but it's also important to know where to go to find the conversion factors that you need, because you're probably not going to have every single one memorized. I mean, ones that we use a lot, you'll like kilo, meter, so meter to kilo, you probably know that conversion is 10 to the third or 1,000, just because we see kilo used pretty frequently. But some of these you might not know. So it's important to know how to look them up in the book, how to look them up online, and find the information that you need. So what I'm looking at, so this is table 2-7 in this book, and this is just some common equalities. So this has conversion factors for metric, US, and then metric to US or US to metric. And then the other thing you're going to want to reference in this book or online is this metric. I don't know if you can see this, but yeah. So I don't know if you can see that, but it's basically metric and Si prefixes. So this is table 2.5 in the book that I have. So this is things like deci is 10 to the minus 1, centi is 10 to the minus 2, kilo is 10 to the third, giga is 10 to the 9, nano is 10 to the minus 9. So you need to know how to look these up as well if you see a prefix on a metric unit that you don't know what it is. So with that said, I'm going to just start going through a few of these. I think the best way to learn how to do this is just practice. So for this first one, we have a container that holds 0.5 quarts of liquid, and we want to know how many milliliters this is. So I'm just going to draw the container. So we have a container, and actually maybe this is a bottle. So we have a container. This holds 0.5 quarts of liquid, and we want to know how many milliliters this is. So quarts are probably something, like if you're in the US, quarts are probably something that you're pretty familiar with. Milliliters might be a little less familiar. So what we want to do with this is, I know that a quart is approximately 1 liter. So for instance, these Nalgene bottles that everybody carries around, this is 1 liter, and it's about 1 quart too. So this is so what we're dealing with here is about half of one of these. So sometimes with these units, it can help to kind of get a perspective of the size. So we're converting this to milliliters. So what I want to do, what I always do first is write down the number that I'm going to convert. So I have 0.5 quart. And then the way I want to do this, if you look at the table, it's like, so if I look at this table with some common equalities, I have that a quart is equal to, so 1.06 quart is equal to 1 liter. And I want this in milliliters, but I think that it'll be easiest to first convert it to liter and then to milliliter. At least if you use this table in the book. If you Google quart to milliliter, you'll find the exact conversion factor, so you can do this in one step. But I'm going to do it in 2 steps, just so you can see how you would do this if you didn't have Google and you were just looking at a chart of common conversions. So we have 0.5 quart. I want to convert this to liter. So my conversion factor is 1 liter is equal to 1.06 quart. I need the quart to cancel out because I'm getting liter. So I'm going to put the 1.06 quart on the bottom and the 1 liter on the top. So then the quarts are going to cancel. If I were to go through this math, I would get this in liter, but I actually want this in milliliter. So I'm going to do one more conversion to milliliter. And if I look at this table, so milli is 10 to the negative 3. So there's 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. But if you didn't know that, you could reference this metric and SI prefixes table in your book, or you could just Google what is, well, unless it's not an exam, then you can't just Google it. But if you're doing homework or if you're doing this in real life, like you need to convert something for your job down the road or something like that, you could just Google convert 1 liter to milliliter, and it'll tell you the conversion factor. So there's 1,000 milliliters in 1 liter. The liters cancel. So if I go through this math, I'm going to end up with 0.5 quart in milliliters. And this equals 472 milliliters. So like I said, there's a few different ways you can do this. You could get the conversion directly from quart to milliliter from Google and do this in 1 step, or you can do the 2 steps like I did and go from liter to milliliter. And sometimes you might not know exactly what steps you need to take to do the full conversion, so you might just need to try things and just convert it into a unit and then see, okay, now I need to do this unit, and then now I need to do this unit, and it might take a few tries to figure out the right order of conversion. Okay, so for this next one, I have 250 liters of distilled water for a dialysis patient. And I want to know how many gallons that is. So I have 250 liters of water, and I want to know this in gallons. And this is something that you could potentially run into in the medical field. I'm not in the medical field, so I don't know for sure, but I know in the US we deal with gallons all the time. So you might be told to something in gallons, but then most of the medical stuff is actually in metric. So if you were getting IV bags or something like that, they might be in metric. So you might need to know how to do this conversion to figure out how many IV bags to give someone. Someone with medical background might be able to comment on that more to tell you if this is something you need to know or not for that. But knowing how to convert from liters to gallons or gallons to liters is probably important if you live in the US, just because we use both unit systems. So just going back to the 250 liters to get an idea of what that would look like. This is about a liter, like these Nalgene's everybody has. So what we want to do is okay, well, I know that there's I know how many quarts are in a gallon. I know that that's a common unit, like quarts to gallons. So there's 4 quarts in a gallon. And I also know that it's pretty easy to convert from liter to quart because they're approximately the same size. So what I want to do is write down the 250 liters, and then I want to convert this to quarts. So I have 250 liters. I have 1.06 quart to 1 liter. So 1.06 quart. And notice how I have the conversion factor opposite this time. This is because with this one I was converting from quart to liter, and this one I'm converting from liter to quart. So I need to, whichever one I have on the bottom, I need it to cancel out with the unit that I want to convert from, and then I'm left with the unit that I'm converting to. So in this case, if I were to go through this math, I would be left with quarts because the liters cancel out. But I actually want gallons, and so the conversion for this is that there's 4 quarts in 1 gallon. I want the quarts to cancel, so I'm going to put the quarts on the bottom. So I have 4 quarts over 1 gallon. And then if the quarts cancel, I'm left with gallon. If I go through this math, this is equal to 66 gallons of this distilled water. So, and if you were, once again, I got these conversions out of the book. So if I was looking at that table in the book, there's not a conversion that goes from liter to gallon. So you have to do this intermediate step with the conversion factors that you have available. If you were to Google what's the conversion of liter to gallon, it would just tell you. So you could potentially do this one in one step as well. Okay, now I want to do one that's just converting between metric units. This can be a little bit tricky if you're not used to metric. So I have a certain way that I recommend doing it just because I think it's the most straightforward way. I've seen people do this a lot of different ways, so whichever way makes most sense to you, but this is how I do it. So let's say we want to convert 36 nanometers to kilometers. So we have a number that's in nanometers. We want to know what it is in kilometers. If you didn't know what nano was, you could go look at this metric and Si prefixes and look up nano, it's the N, and it's 10 to the negative 9. So if you don't know, if you didn't know that N meant nano, you could look this up on that table, or knowing these common prefixes like kilo, centi, milli, nano, and I'm trying to think of what other ones you might see frequently. Let's see. Mega, giga, just the ones that you see frequently. I would actually try and just remember that, even if you don't remember exactly what this, the nano is 10 to the negative 9, just remember that this is one of the metric prefixes, so you can look it up if you don't know what it is. Okay, so what I usually do with this is I just write down the number without the prefix attached. So this would be like 36 times 10 to the negative 9 meters. So nano is 10 to the negative 9, so I can just write this as 36 times 10 to the negative 9 meters, and then I have the unit in meters, and it's pretty easy to go from meters to kilometers. So this would be, so I have 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. I want the meters to cancel, so the 1,000 meters goes on the bottom, and I have kilometer on the top. So the meters cancel, and I'm left with the units of kilometer, and this is equal to 3.6 times 10 to the negative 11 kilometers. So this is how to go from nanometers to kilometers. If I had this in, say, I don't know, say that was centimeters, I could just write this as 36 times 10 to the -2. And then I have this in meters. If this were, I don't know, let's say, well, what's another one? Millimeter. So then I would have 36 times 10 to the -3. So just whatever the prefix is, I just replace it with the 10 to whatever it is, and then I convert to the metric unit that I want. So I'm going to change this back to a 9. Some people will count the decimal places. I think once you get experience with metric, that's a good way to do it, but I think trying to start out doing it like that is really confusing. So I would recommend doing something like this. The other thing you could do if you didn't want to go from, like, say, if you didn't want to write down 36 10 to the -9, you could write down the conversion for nanometers to meters, and then the conversion from meters to kilometers. I think it's easiest to do it like this. Just write down what the prefix is equal to, and then convert it to the unit that you want. Okay, I want to do one more showing you how to convert when you have multiple units to convert. So this one will be, we have the speed of light in meters per second, and we want to convert it to miles per minute. So I'm going to erase some things real quick. For this last one, sometimes you'll get units that you need to convert more than one unit. So for instance, the speed of light is 2.99 times 10 to the 8th meters per second. And we want this in miles per minute. So this might look really hard at first because we need to change the units on both the top and the bottom. But this is the exact same process as what I was just doing. The only difference is you need to do a conversion for both the top and the bottom. So what I usually do with this is I start with the top. So in this case, we want to convert meters to miles. So the way I'm going to convert the meters is I'm going to convert it into kilometers, because I don't know the conversion between meters and miles. It's not on the chart in the book. It's on Google if you look it up, but it's not on the chart in the book. But I know that I have kilometers to mile on the chart in the book. So I want to convert the meters to kilometers and then to miles. So what I'm going to do is just the same thing as before. So I write the number, so 2.99 times 10 to the 8 meters per second. And then I want to convert the meters to kilometers. And so there's 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer. The meters are going to cancel. And now if I were to go through this math, I would have kilometers per second. But I don't want kilometers, I want miles. So I'm going to take this a step further. And the conversion for kilometer to mile is there's 0.621 mile in 1 kilometer. And I want the kilometer to cancel, so I'm putting the kilometer on the bottom and the mile on the top. So I have 0.621 miles. Kilometers cancel. If I were to go through this math, I would have miles per second. Those are the units that I have right now. I want per minute, so I'm going to convert the second to a minute. So I just add another conversion for the second, and I want the seconds to cancel, and I want the minutes on the bottom. So I'm putting the seconds on the top here. So I have 60 seconds per 1 minute. The seconds cancel, and I'm left with, once I go through this math, I'm left with mile per minute. So if I plug all this into a calculator, I get 1.18 times 10 to the 7th miles per minute. So that's just some examples of different types of unit conversions you might run into. Unit conversions you pretty much use this method for all of them. You just need to figure out what your unit is, what you want to convert to, and then figure out what the conversion factors are to get from the unit you have to the unit you want. And so I hope this was helpful. Thank you.